Thank you so much for tuning into my show, William Wallace for America. I appreciate you. I appreciate your time. Of course, I'm recording this right before Christmas. I'm hoping you have a great holiday season. That's right. I said the bad word, holiday season, right? I said it wrong because the Christians, and I am one of those, and my Christian friends will say, but Jesus is the reason for the season. Remember, it's all how you say Jesus. I always used to joke about that, when you're a Christian, you have to learn how to say Jesus the right way if you're a minister. I'm not making fun of it. I'm simply putting the emphasis on Jesus for a reason, because while Jesus is the reason for Christmas, I've kind of like starting to say happy holy days, not happy holidays, because I heard that holidays were derived from the word holy days. So we got holidays from the holy days. So I've kind of said, you know what? They are a bunch of holy days. Of course, Christmas, Jesus is the reason for this season. I completely agree and concur. New Year's Eve is actually because of Jesus also, the day he was circumcised, by the way, which gave us a new year, which is how we got New Year's Eve. But people don't realize that it's actually a holy day. So it was just kind of a unique way of starting out my show saying happy holy days. But Christmas being the reason for the season. Merry Christmas to today's show is brought to you by the Wellness Company. Go visit the Wellness Company at twc.health/WWFA to get a discount and support my show. Today's show is going to be a little bit different. I have a little bit of a different idea that I was thinking about in the last couple weeks for a show. But before that, I used to joke about this thought quite a bit, but I never thought about it as being the basis for a show. I'll give you the thought. The thought is that people will argue to be right and not correct. Follow me. There's a difference, of course, being right or actually being correct. People want to feel right. So people will argue to win an argument to be right because they want to feel right, especially if they don't have facts to back up their argument. They learn how to say it with just the right emphasis or tone of voice. They learn how to argue it with just enough authority in their voice. They will sound like they know what they're talking about. This is the way it is. And they'll bring in some facts ish. They might not be correct, but because they're arguing to be right and not correct, they don't think about finding actual facts that prove that they are correct instead of just being right. It doesn't matter to them. Now, some people, I'll say most people, probably do not consciously think about this, that they are arguing to be right. They know, okay, I'm wrong. I don't know my facts, but I'm going to argue to be right anyway. It's actually something that they don't even think about, I believe. And I'll tell you why. I have met people on the street, you know, friends, family, relatives, not so much relatives, but I've got some close family members, we'll say, a very close person. And when you have an argument with that person, they will pull out things that just make your eyes go, "What?" They make you go, "What did they just say?" Like, that makes 0 sense. You know, you'll say, "Oh, isn't that a beautiful sunset?" That's not the sun. That's actually a sunset. And you're like, "Well, what's kind of what I'm saying?" "No, it's not. You said it's the sun, but it's a sunset." Or you'll say, "Wow, the moon, that sure is a full moon." "No, it's not. It's round." "Well, I'm saying the same thing." "No, you said it's a full moon, but it's a round moon." Okay. Or, and I'm just giving you some examples that I'm making up, but are parallel to arguments that I've heard. Yes, I'm getting to a point. So you got to follow me here. People will argue you down. They'll drag you in the weeds with their stupidity or their rightness and not their correctness. They will drag you down with their alternative facts, or they won't even have facts sometimes. They just believe so much that they are right that they will argue with you. You'll say, you know, that grass sure is short and green. And they'll say, no, it's not. That's AstroTurf. Well, no, it grows. My neighbor cuts it every day. I see him cut it, see him grow. No, it's not. It's AstroTurf. Look at it. Look at the way it grows. Real grass doesn't grow that way, you know. Real grass really grows this way. That's not real grass. Well, it's cut. I could go on and on forever, making examples up because, quite honestly, I've heard so many arguments from people who want to be right with their version of a story or their version, their facts that they make up in their head because they are so determined to prove that they're right. They don't care about being correct. Facts are out the window because they either just want to win an argument to elevate themselves. Maybe they want to win an argument to elevate themselves above you. But where I thought of using this example as a podcast is in a lot of things that are happening today. And that is that people will argue with you to be right because they are pushing an agenda. And maybe their agenda has absolutely nothing to do with reality. Maybe their agenda is pushing their narrative. Maybe their agenda is just to destroy your facts or destroy proof that you might have that your way is actually better. In politics today, I think this describes a lot of what we're seeing on both sides. Now, Republicans have been saying for a very long time that with Democrats, facts don't matter, which in a lot of arguments is absolutely true. I'm just taking it another step further that not only do facts not matter in it, it's that their desire to push their agenda is more important than actual facts because their agenda doesn't have to be right. It doesn't have to be correct, rather. It doesn't even have to be factual. It just has to be strong enough of an argument or said with the right tone of voice to be able to win their argument or destroy your argument. Kind of funny. I use the way people say Jesus. You know, when you hear a Baptist minister say it, they emphasize it with Jesus. I'm not making fun at all whatsoever, but I'm pointing out a fact. When you hear a minister really emphasize Jesus or God, he's emphasizing facts. He's emphasizing things that not only that he believes, but he's pushing his agenda to save lives, and he emphatically says it like that. Or when you hear usually a liberal, but we're hearing it on the conservative side, Republican side too, when people push their agenda, their narratives, or their version of the story, which are not factual, that are more about being righteous or righteous sounding, they push it with a tone of voice and a level of authority in their voice that makes a lot of people go, wow, they really know what they're talking about. Because when people sound wishy-washy, they go, yeah, they're not true. I am speaking to you about things that you might have already thought about. You might have already said, that's common sense. But where are you going with this? Well, where I'm going with this is in several news stories recently, I would like to point out a couple of things that are being said or pushed to more or less to kind of make my point about people arguing to be right and not correct, which I think explains a lot of what's happening in our country and a lot of what is used to divide us in this country. And with that in mind, I'm hoping that when I show you some examples, some news stories, you're going to open your eyes in the future to go, wow, they're not arguing with facts. They're arguing to be right instead of being correct to push an agenda using narratives that sound like facts simply because of the way they elevate their voice and use their tone of voice in ways to convince people who are not awake, who are not aware, or who are not involved that their way is the right way. And if they do that, they succeed in not only more division, but they succeed in bringing people into their camp who will also support their agenda because with having more people on your side supporting your rightness instead of your facts, you can either profit from it financially or you can profit off of it in the way of votes or in the way of changing your community or their community or changing our country. And I think that this desire to be righteous about your rightness or your version of the story and using your agenda to push your narratives is part of yet another problem in our country where they were using this process to steal our freedoms, to get more government, to give government more power, and to get their people elected for the purpose of changing the country. And because they don't pay attention to facts, they don't care about facts, they oftentimes don't realize that their agenda, their narratives that are being used to change to fit their vision of what they want for our country isn't the best for America. As a matter of fact, when it comes to immigration policies on bringing Somalians in or people from Mexico in, they've made their agenda about changing our country to fit a population, to have a population that fits more of their way of thinking and fits more of that with people that might look like them or people that will vote like them. It doesn't matter. They don't care if it's the right thing to do, if it's the wrong thing to do. They don't care. It fits their agenda. And by doing this, they don't even realize that in years to come, that because they are not factual and it's about being right for them, they don't realize that a lot of the people that they are bringing here or a lot of the agendas that they're using to change the country with will change the fabric of our nation in a way that we won't have in 50 years what we have today. A population that's pro-America, pro-freedom, pro-country, pro-God, pro-Second Amendment, pro-First Amendment. Look at what it's done to Europe. Look at what it's done to countries around Europe. The narratives, the agendas, and the arguing to win with being right instead of facts, and being right instead of being correct, have changed countries like Germany. People are leaving by the millions because of the policies that are going on in Germany, because of the laws, because government realizes when they bring in people that are not as grounded on facts and America and grounded on the things that have made America great, they realize that they create a population that is more apt to kneel and bow to government rules and regulations. And that's how the wealthy get wealthier. And these people that are pushing the agendas, many of them don't even realize that. Many of them are the wealthy people. They're pushing it because they realize, hey, I got the money. If I if I do some of these things, and I don't think they really think it out like this in particular. I think it's over a period of time, many conversations. They just feel that if they bring in more people that look like them, or they bring in more people that think like them, whether they look like them or not, when they bring more people to their team, they themselves and their close friends and allies will benefit more in a bigger way. And they almost feel like, in my opinion, that the bigger they make their circle, everybody's gonna be doing better. But the reality is they're not doing this with facts. They're not changing the fabric of our nation. They're not changing the policies of our country with factual things that make our country and communities better. They're changing it with things that only support their ideologies, and ideologies are almost never factual. They may be based in some things that have actually happened, but the reality is ideologies don't rely on facts to survive. Ideologies rely on agendas. And all of those things flourish with things that are not factual, where the people that are using their desire to be right and not correct step up to the plate with those tools. And that's what we're hearing a lot of in a lot of the news stories. I'm going to give you 3 or 4 news stories here in a few minutes, and some are going to be on the right and some are going to be on the left. More on the left, I get it, because of the fact that, I just think that the lack of facts, the agendas that lack facts, the narratives that lack facts, it's a tongue twister there, are coming more from the left and Democrat side than they are the Republican side. But again, as you've heard me before on my show, I'm not necessarily a huge fan of the far right wing narratives and ideologies and agendas that I believe not only try to pull the country further to the right, which is where we lose a lot of people in the middle. It's almost like you're taking that middle group of people and you're pushing them out as you try to pull the population further to the right on things. You lose a lot of people, a lot of one-issue voters that would rather vote Democrat than be pulled to the right. And, our country has always been described as a right versus left country. So I'm going to digress here a minute, because the reality is we can't even say that we're a right and a left or a conservative or a liberal country. We can't even really use that anymore. I do use it, and I will always use it, because it's like the English language. I'm going to speak the language that a lot of people can identify with, and a lot of people can be able to translate into their own head and go, okay, that's what he means by this. But more and more, the far right will say, and the agenda there, a lot of it isn't even conservative. It really is about arguing to win, arguing to push an agenda instead of arguing to be correct. I'm going to start off with immigration, for instance. Right now, the right side of the aisle, the Republican, and even the people who call themselves conservatives, and this is a conservative issue. I will absolutely agree that our immigration system needs to be fixed. We don't need illegal immigrants here. They've come here illegally. They should be escorted out the door. 100%. I agree with that. Oh, that's because you're one of those right-wing people and you're just... Nope. It's because I'm a law-abiding citizen. And I recognize that if we are not law-abiding citizens, we only set examples for the criminals. Yo, you're calling the immigrants who want to come here and have a new start, they're calling them criminals. Well, if they come here legally, they really kind of are, and we find that most of them are working under the table illegally. Most of them are working that are committing crimes, and a lot of them are getting away with it. What's that saying to the criminals in the inner cities? The inner cities citizens who've been here a long time that are committing crimes, and judges are letting them go because we are creating a population that doesn't care about being correct. They care about being right. And when their agenda is, whether it's for survival or whether it's to live their lives, and we've allowed criminality, it becomes a right versus left issue when the right side of the aisle is the one saying we got to get rid of the immigrants, we got that are here illegally, we got to get rid of the criminals, and then the left says, well, that's not being caring or loving, and then that becomes a left-wing issue. But the reality is our politicians are accountable because they're not fixing the immigration laws that are on the books. They're not. There are multiple ways, and it's right around 100 ways. I'm just going to give an example, things I've heard, to be able to come to America legally. There are lots of ways to do it legally. But our government has made it easier, the Democrats have made it easier, because they don't care about being correct and following the law. They care about being right because their agenda is to get more people in that will vote for them. And they don't care if it's correct. It's right for them. And the Republicans say, we're going to kick them all out. They are caring more about votes for the people on their side than they are about doing the right thing. You see a little bit of a twist there. Or the correct thing, and fixing the immigration problem, fixing the immigration system, getting in there and actually fixing it. And as a result, we have the issues that we have where it's become a right versus left, Republican versus Democrat thing. And the people are losing on this. I'm going to give you a few examples that are going to be a little different than immigration. So I don't really kind of want to get away from that a little bit and talk about some other things to prove that people in the media have these agendas that are not only proving my point, or making my point rather, but they are showing the division that they're trying to muster up rather. Joy Reid, for example. Who would have thunk that Jingle Bells was racist? Who would have thunk that it was a racist song? It's something that should be, eradicated because it's racist. But again, facts don't matter. If someone has an agenda to destroy, say, Christmas, or destroy the holiday spirit, to destroy something that is more about Christianity, more about, remember, Jesus is the reason for the season, or the holidays are holy days, what better way to destroy that than chip away at it from the things that we enjoy during the holidays, like Jingle Bells or songs? I'm sure it won't be long before the Christmas tree is a racist thing, because somebody will care more about being correct or being right rather than being correct. I almost said that wrong. But they'll try to sound like they're correct with their tone of voice or mixing in things that sound like facts, like Joy Reid did. Fired MSNBC host Joy Reid played Grinch on social media this week, sharing a video claiming beloved Christmas anthem Jingle Bells was written to make fun of Black people. In the video she shared to her 1.3 million Instagram followers, you see, even the New York Post, where this article was, tries to elevate her a little bit. She has millions of followers, so this must give her some credibility. A man in a Christmas sweater and Santa that stands on the streets of Medford, Massachusetts, near a plaque marks the site where James Lord Pierpont is believed to have penned the song in 1850. He takes off his hat disapprovingly and scowls at the plaque. The video caption reading, "This is where a racist Confederate soldier wrote Jingle Bells to make fun of Black people, and has its origins in bigoted minstrel shows that were popular at the time." I'm looking for the facts. I just see somebody who wants to be right. So they come up with some things where they can look. The difference between a fact and a lie is, or it was a conspiracy and a fact. Let's just throw it all in the same pot. People will mix up a few facts with a little bit of information that they might have come up with, pulled out of their ears, mix it all up, pull it out, say it in a way to their 1.3 million followers that makes it sound like, oh, wow, they were used in minstrel shows. That song it was written by a Confederate soldier. No facts. Maybe, just maybe, it happened to be a Confederate soldier, but she goes back. It starts off with the song was written in 1850, before the Civil War. So you see, it's not factual. It's about being right. She doesn't care whether it's correct. She pulls out just enough information to make it sound like a fact to prove her agenda, and she'll argue it to be right instead of correct. He takes off his hat disapprovingly, the article goes on to say, and scowls at the plaque. The video caption reading, "This is where a racist Confederate soldier wrote Jingle Bells to make," let's see, pause here for 1 second, to be able the article. So as I continue, the article jumped here as I was reading it on the news. So it says, he takes off his hat disapprovingly and scowls at the plaque. The video caption reading, "This is where a racist Confederate soldier wrote Jingle Bells to make fun of Black people, and has its origin in bigoted minstrel shows that were popular at the time." I've read that already. Sorry. The video captions go on to claim Pierpont, whose nephew grew up to be legendary financier J.P. Morgan, was hard up for cash when he composed the one-horse open sleigh, and so expressly for its use in performances in which the white actors put on black faces to mock and caricature Black people trying to participate in winter activities. Pierpont patented the song in 1859, before the Civil War, and changed its name to the familiar Jingle Bells before the start of the Civil War, at which point the video claims he abandoned his family to join the Confederate Army and wrote Southern fight songs to rouse men defending slavery. Reid, you see, all of this is just done in a way where she's offering zero facts or proof to make her agenda, or prove her agenda, as she will, to carry the narrative that Christmas is going to be racist eventually, as I'll put it, because they have Kwanzaa. Remember, they have the Black alternative, which, as we all have heard before, is really a government-created holiday. I won't even go down that road. I'm just giving you something to look up, what people say. She wasn't the first to besmirch the most popular Christmas song in the U.S. Council Rock Primary School in upstate New York drew the ire of the residents when it banned Jingle Bells from being sung at the school's annual holiday concert due to its alleged ties to blackface and minstrelsy. Minstrelsy. That's a weird word. Minstrelsy. Minstrelsy. That's what it is. Minstrelsy. That's a weird one. New word. Either way, this was yet another example of how we're seeing that people will argue to prove their agenda instead of arguing facts. And when they find something like this, they are going to argue you into the weeds, drag you into the weeds with their version simply to make their point. All right, we're going to go to the I'm changing subjects a little bit on you, so hang in there, because the other thing was that I thought was really odd, and I'm going to give a Donald Trump example here in a minute, by the way, which I think some of my listeners will really appreciate, because again, arguing to be right instead of arguing to be correct, I believe, can be used in a lot of different ways to push an agenda or even elevate yourself, as I said earlier, in ways to either make yourself feel better or circle the wagons around your agenda, if you will. And I'll save that one for last. That's actually my third one. The next one that I thought was really interesting is, did you guys know that font is racist or woke? The type of font that you use. Now, I know all caps offend some people, but you know what? For people that might need a few little readers, all caps is, kind of used just to say, hey, I've got, I can see a little bit, better or easier when I've got, when I'm using all caps. But all caps offends people sometimes. I think that's kind of old. I don't think it offends people as much, but all caps, I remember, used to be a big thing. Oh, you don't all cap somebody, that means you're yelling at them. Well, now font is racist or woke. It's part of that woke agenda, right? When I came across this article, again, people aren't arguing in our society anymore, let alone discussing in our society anymore. They get an agenda on their mind. They get a narrative on their mind. They want to push their beliefs. And oftentimes, they're not necessarily feel like they have to just push that single issue that they believe in. And since they can't find enough facts to push a single issue, they'll bring in lots of other issues. Again, they kind of bring in those other things to kind of make the world look as they see it. If they see it racist, they see it bigoted, sexist, whatever, they're going to bring in a lot of their own facts from wherever they can, which, like Jingle Bells, now font is racist. Dutch design Calibri font is apparently too woke for U.S. officials to use. The U.S. State Department has launched a new offensive on the Dutch designed Calibri typeface. Since January 2023, officials in America have been using the Calibri font designed by Dutchman Lucas de Groot for all official communication. That is until December 9th, 2025, when Marco Rubio put an end to the Biden era. You got to get rid of all those Biden things, right? Decision ordering all communications to return to the Times New Roman typeface. I'm confused. So does that mean that all the types that were typed up thing, or all the documents that were typed, now have to be retyped? You see, that's how government works. They're really not thinking that it's woke. They're really seeing it as a way to create another program to retype everything in the type that is not woke. I know I'm going off on some weird agendas right now, some weird, how should we say, some weird rants right now. But my point is to show everybody that we're living in a world where people are not caring about facts. They're not caring about whether they have a fact to back up their agenda or their narratives. They just want to win. They argue to be right, to win, and not argue to be correct and solve problems. You don't fix things when you solve problems. When you solve problems, everybody loses, or no, there's no winners, we'll say. Everybody ends up on a level playing field where everybody should start from a level playing field. Nobody should get elevated to start ahead of the others. And so when everybody argues to be correct, you find solutions. And when you have solutions, you don't have people winning on narratives and ideologies. Instead, you have people winning and prospering. You don't get government out of our lives when we argue for facts and solutions. We get more government and more intervention that controls people when we argue to be right and create more problems for not only the government to intervene, but the media hops onto it because everybody is now more excited about the narratives and the ideologies and the agendas because the lack of facts actually are more interesting than facts. Facts are like not even interesting to people anymore. They don't care anymore. They just want the red meat. And that is part of why we are losing in this country. I'm going to finish reading this article. December 9th, 2025, when Marco Rubio put an end to the Biden era decision ordering all communication to return to the Times New Roman typeface. According to the New York Times, the Secretary of State called Calibri a wasted step on diversity. Really? Font is not diverse, or some fonts are not diverse, and some fonts are woke and some are not woke because they're what? I'm scratching my head, proverbially speaking. Lucas de Groot, the Dutchman who designed Calibri, calls Rubio's decision sad, reports NOS. A more accessible font, because you see, that's just it. We need accessible font. We need diverse, accessible font. So the article continues, although Times New Roman was once widely used, its 1990s digital version became much less suitable for computers, de Groot tells the NOS. Serif fonts, such as Times New Roman, can look very beautifully amidst, but they can be distracting and unclear, much like agendas and narratives. In 2002, the typeface design teacher was commissioned by Microsoft to create a modern and user-friendly font that was easy to read on screens. Due to its simpler shapes and wider spacing, Calibri is easier to read for people with reading disabilities such as dyslexia. That's why accessibility advocates welcome the Biden administration's 2023 switch to Calibri. Now, I get that there may be a real reason here at the end of the article to change fonts. But what they did at the beginning, they made it political, they made it woke, they made it accessible, they made it racist, all because it was a president that they didn't agree with. And now the new president, or in the new administration, they're going to use some facts to be able to change it up. Is that just another poke in the eye? Who knows? The reality is this: they're not arguing for a solution. They threw in, hey, there's a solution here at the end. It's going to fix some reading disabilities. I get it. But they had to start it out with a slap in the face to somebody, much like my last example for the show today, to prove that people will argue to win based on their being right instead of arguing to for a solution on facts, or better yet, arguing to simply be kind or for the greater good or peace of our country. But before I continue, I'd like to remind everybody to please go to the Wellness Company, check out some things that they are selling that promote medical freedom, but also Patriot Mobile. Don't forget about Patriot Mobile, where you can get a fantastic rates on your cell phone bill to cover any budget you may have. Also, speaking about cover, get great coverage at patriotmobile.com/WWFA, and the Wellness Company for medical freedom at twc.health/WWFA for some discounts. So back to my last example of today's show, what Donald Trump said about Rob Reiner. And I got to tell you, I'm really not extremely happy about this. And the reason I'm not happy about it is for the same reason that I was unhappy about when he said about removing the license, the media license for the major news network that asked him a bad question. I'm not going into that. You know what I'm talking about. Because when you say things, it might make your point. It might make your point about how you feel. It might vindicate how you feel about something. In this case, what the president said about the news media and why he felt their license should be removed based on how he feels, it sets an example that right-wing or Republicans and conservative-minded people also feel that way because they supported Donald Trump. Okay? Now, I'm not backing off of the fact that I support the general direction that Trump is doing on many things, but there are things that I disagree with. And I'm not doing a show on what I agree with and what I disagree with. Not right now, maybe later. But the reason for that is simply because when you look at immigration, I like the fact that he is making the criminal part of the illegal immigrants, kicking them out. I like that. I think it's needed. There's other things. Anyway, I'm not going to go into that right now. But where I disagreed with is when he made the thing about the comment about removing the license. He makes the example that anybody who supports him agrees with that, and then they peg any future Republican candidate as having supported Trump who supported the removal of their First Amendment right. Now, let's go to this example with Rob Reiner. When you criticize somebody like this, then the media is going to run with that and make everybody who supports Trump being somewhat of the same attitude towards this. I'm speaking as simplistically as I can for a reason, not only to keep it short, but to make my point a little bit more simplistic, because there's so many rabbit holes that go down here. There's so many different directions that I can take this, and I really just want to stay on point. When it comes to Rob Reiner, he said, President Donald Trump, this is an article I got off the internet here. While referring to Rob Reiner and his wife's death, Donald Trump posted on social media. President Donald Trump, while making a remembrance post for Rob Reiner, claimed that the director and actor was tortured and slammed the many comments that Reiner had made against him over the years, Trump wrote. And he starts out, which I thought was very good. A very sad thing happened last night in Hollywood. Rob Reiner, a tortured and struggling, but once very talented movie director, that was not needed, and comedy stars, passed away together with his wife. Hats off to Rob Reiner. He had a successful career, and while he may have had struggles, we don't need to point that out in his death. Together with his wife, Michelle, reportedly due to the anger he caused others through his massive, unyielding, and incurable affliction with a mind-crippling disease known as Trump derangement syndrome, sometimes referred to as TDS. This is the point where somebody might feel like they are elevating themselves, circling the wagons with their supporters. Instead, what ends up happening is you start to take many people that supported you and push them away from you because you're going, you might not like Rob Reiner, but he died in a bad way. So let's just be kind to the man because like nobody wants to die a gruesome death like that. So like leave the man alone, leave the family alone, and to be tactful and kind elevates yourself a lot more than trying to trash somebody and take them down in their death. And that is something that I felt like these are the things that get said that don't need to be said in this way, particularly at this time. And when you do that, you lose people that might have supported you, but you also make the case for the other side that they're going to use this against other Republicans in the future who may say they support Trump. Like I'm saying, like I can say, I support the general direction of many of the policies that Trump is doing to improve America. You know, I supported Doge. I support fighting drugs maybe a little bit differently. And there are laws in the books that do give them the permission to shoot down some boats. And that's a whole other topic for another day. I do have some things I'll bring up another show on that. But you lose people and you only give the other side ammunition against us in future elections. When you become kind and peaceful, you not only elevate yourself, but you bring in more people who support you and you take fuel and ammunition away from the other side. The article goes on, and I'll finish his quote out like this. It says, while hoping the couple rest in peace, Trump also claimed that the director was obsessed with him and was paranoid, he added. He was known to have driven people crazy by his raging obsession of Donald J. Trump, with his obvious paranoia reaching new heights as the Trump administration surpassed all goals, not the time to elevate yourself or brag, all goals and expectations of greatness. And with the golden age of America upon us, perhaps like never before, may Rob and Michelle rest in peace. It's kind of a backhanded compliment, or backhanded, not compliment, but a backhanded memorial, if you will. Instead of a backhanded compliment, it's a backhanded memorial. I mean, like kindness and professionalism and caring at a time like this elevates yourself to where you get more people listening to you when you end up saying things in the future, like independently of somebody's death, you say, hey, look at the great things I've done. When you say it after you've backhanded somebody, given them a backhanded memorial, you don't have people listening to the accomplishments. And then again, in the future, these will be used, these words, this stuff will be used against future people running for office, which only makes future elections or future the voting and electing future Republican presidents more difficult, because then people are pivoting away. You see, they divide the party up here. They say, well, if a future candidate says they support Donald Trump's policies, we're going to bring them down that they supported somebody who said this. Likewise, if they use that against us, we're going to have a harder time not only getting people elected, but we're going to have a harder time jumping the hurdle to say, well, we supported policies, but we didn't support this. Then they're backtracking. If we are really going to win America back in the future and make progress on fiscal reform, on immigration reform, on the things that America is struggling with right now, we're not going to do it by always sounding angry I get it. You know what? I get the anger because he was attacked for so long and by so many false claims. And as a result of those false claims, it cost him not only a lot of money, but it cost him a lot of honor. I know somebody's gonna say, "Oh, he doesn't deserve the honor." I get it. But when you accuse somebody and you try to take them down, you take away dignity. You don't let them save face. So some people, in the case of Donald Trump, are going to come back swinging as he has. I get that. I get the fact that he's coming back swinging because of what he went through for so many years and disgraced. I get it. There's arguments for that say he deserved it. There's arguments against with proof that show that he didn't deserve that. I get it. The reality is this. When you come back and show more grace and dignity than you were ever allotted, you elevate yourself higher. And it gives you a platform to be able to boast bigger and reach more people and pull more people closer to you when you are professional, when you're kind. And then people listen. People will follow you more. You'll gain more followers. And while that may sound like I'm giving the president advice, it's simply my feelings on what I think could have been done better for everybody. Because reality is this, our country right now, people are arguing to be right. They're not arguing to be correct. They're arguing to win a fight. They're arguing to be able to win with their agenda. They're arguing to elevate themselves above people. And I get it. That's human nature. And I get it. That's how humans are in general. They want to win. But we've lost dignity. We've lost professionalism. We've lost kindness. We've lost love. We've lost caring for our fellow man. We've allowed politicians to divide us up. But we've also allowed ourselves to give up on feeling like we deserve better. We eat up those lies. We eat up the tones of indignation that profess things that aren't even factual, that accept the agendas and the narratives and the ideologies as facts instead of fact checking them. And these are the things that are dividing us. I always point to the problem, but I also point to the responsibility. And we're the ones responsible. We, the people, are the ones that need to ignore the lies, ignore the arguments to be right instead of correct, and demand better. And talk more about solutions and facts as examples to the elected officials that we're paying attention to what needs to be done and not what you're feeding us to believe. On that note, guys, I'm going to close out the show, but only after I ask you to please go through my website, look through my affiliates, look through MyPillow. It's that time of the season. If you go to mypillow.com, use that promo code WWFA, you get some nice discounts there. Use my promo code at the Wellness Company, and that is twc.health/WWFA. And Patriot Mobile, of course, supports America and everything American and our Constitution and our military and our Second Amendment. Go to patriotmobile.com/WWFA to get some free months there. And please, I'd be not only honored, but grateful if you shared the show, told a friend about me, and sent them a link to one of my podcasts. And if you listen to the podcast, remember I'm on YouTube and Rumble, And if you're watching me on YouTube and Rumble, you can catch me on all podcast apps. Thank you so much. God bless you. God bless America. And Merry Christmas and Happy Holy Days, especially the one where Jesus is the reason for Christmas. God bless you guys.